He was once incredibly weak on the verge of death. And now he's been summoned by a goddess to fight the demon lord. What a glow-up we start things off, but being told that the goddess of fate will one day choose 6 heroes, and these heroes will stop the awakening of demons that will turn the world into a living hell. The 6th the chosen will be K. Known as the Braves of the 6 Flowers. Hey, look, it's the name of the enemy. Inside a sort of Aztec-looking city we made a mysterious man who interrupt the holy semi-final competition. Being held between 2 warriors the men admire, proclaims himself to be the strongest warrior in the world, and says he's changing things, and this woman up of it telling the 2 warriors to fight him instead of each other annoys the worries begin walking away from him, calling for the gods, which I'd let disposes of with ease. He then begins fighting with the 2 warriors, and off to use in a wide range of 2 Ols and combat expertise he manages to defeat the both of them. He then proclaims to the giant statue in the goddess of fate that she must pick him to become a brave, as he's proven himself the strongest man. He then gets crushed, tackled, and finds himself thrown in jail because of the actions he had taken interrupting the competition. That night I may go into the jail cells, wanting to talk with discuss the origin belonging to the Braves of the 6 Flowers, and hello, all signs are pointing to the demon god once again awakening within this year. He once again confirms how confident he is that he will be chosen as a brave, and states that he wishes to fight alongside the princes of this land, not Titania, which is another reason why he interrupted the competition. As the winner gets to fight her, she leaves, and the next day he is thrown into an even more desolate jail cell, and others spending quite some time down there. He begins to have nightmares about the demon gods awakening. Tendrils of light began to bear down on him, and he wakes up with pain coursing through his hand. And we don't see a mark on his hand indicating that he has been chosen as one of the Braves. Just then the same Mago from Elia shows up, introducing yourself, probably telling him that she is not Titania, the crown princess of this land, and also one of the chosen 6 Braves. She then breaks him out of his jail cell, and the 2 then leave on horseback, making their way to the west, with the oral of his nightmare was originating from. Along the way Ilet picks up some of his belongings he left from a hideout, before they then stop in an orchard farm off the traveling for a while as they take a break for lunch. Not Titania shows off some of her abilities she possesses as a Saint of Blades, explaining the ST is a set of abilities some women get blessed with by the gods. As they continue one notch, Tiny explains how a knight she knows named Goldov has left in search of an individual, has been killing people with the potential of becoming braves. And she laments that she hasn't heard word of him for 6 weeks. They then come across a village that's been terrorized by demonic fiends, and both spring into action, although often not Titania. This is a first time fighting against Veins, and while she does a pretty good job, she does get saved by Outlet. Afterwards Idled is told that one of the villages that there is still someone left in the village, and as he goes to try and save his start, but not Titania, who tells him that they can serve everyone, and fighting this demon god is the most important thing they can do right now. That agrees with her before saying suck and making his way back to the village to save the girl. As he leaves he once again says he's the strongest man in the world. Yeah. He says that a lot of things, like some kind of tiki, has just then more demons begin to attack, not Titania. All that makes his way into the destroyed village, where he finds a faint dead on the ground, killed by a gunshot. He then read the quota and sees a woman armed with that thing saving the animals that were left behind when the village was abandoned, who would leave behind their pets. Come on now. As he approaches the woman, whose name is for me speed draw, he can see that she also has a mock indicating her as a brave, but she then pulls a gun on him, asking if he's come to kill her. That's enough, Titania. And we can see that she's managed to kill the Faints, but at the cost of the holes, when an unknown man rides up, kneels before her, and announces himself as Goldavin. Tells not Titania that the one who's been killing braves and those with potential has white head, and is armed with a gun. IW Onder who that could be. After some brief talking, for me tells Zilet to leave her alone, explaining that she is the Saint of Gunpowder and is planning to fight the demon god all by herself before she then runs away. Not quite done with the conversation, Eilert grabs his things from the horse and begins to chase off to her. And even though it does take some time, he eventually corners. So he tells of the Constan what she would want to try and fight the demon. Go to learn when will take all 6 braves the flower. To defeat him, she says that she explains to him the reason, then him and any of the other braves will try to kill her. And she then says she doesn't want to see him again. Before running off frustrated, he pulls out a smoke bomb and throws it at her, before running up and stealing the palatability uses, declaring that they'll now be traveling together and saying again that he is the strongest man in the world. And he will be able to save her from any of the other braves if what she's saying about a polished is true elsewhere, not to Tanya. And Gold finish cleaning up the rest of the fans in the village when Eilert's horse runs up to the both of them. And they find a note left in its subtle, which is from Adlet explaining his situation and telling her to continue on towards the peninsula, with the demon god resides without him, as he has met with another member of the Braves. After traveling on Adlet in for me eventually come across a fortress. Though seemingly under attack, they make their way to the front gates and explain that they are Braves once inside. However, the committee says the battle against the fans took place. He recently had pretty much wiped out all the gods. He goes on to explain that the fans were trying to get to a part of the barrier of built into the fortress by the Saint of Sold, which can block of the peninsula from the demon gods led to the main continent, but says the activation point is farther on down to the peninsula. As I'd let in for me continue on, they're suddenly attacked by knowledge of Tanya, and Goldov was not T. Oh, Tanya warning I let to stay away from me as the battle continues, and for me is getting pushed, but not to Tanya. And Goldov Idlib demands that everyone stop saying that she isn't their enemy. She is one of the Braves, much to the shock of knowledge of Tanya. And Goldov for me that admit that they right naming of several of the Braves that had been chosen and numerous other warriors with the potential to become Braves, saying that she killed them to bring back the return of the demon god, as if she killed all the strong members. No one will be left to stop it, just as he fight is about to resume at that stands in front protecting her, stating that someone who wants to defeat the demon god would never be chosen as a member of the Braves, and so right now they're not enemies. Everyone else then buys this, and they just sort of accept her into the group. And Tr. Avel on Woods, as they get close to the temple that activates the barriers, they find a large number of themes blocking the way, and so that runs off by himself to try and secure the temple. However, after exploding the door, of fog starts to settle into the surrounding area, indicating that he barrier must have been already activated. And does he make his way inside and up some stairs, he finds a sword left behind from the temple being activated. The rest of the group then catches up, and they discovered that due to the barrier being activated in such a way, they are now trapped here and have no way to turn it off. Just then the rest of the members belonging to the Braves begin to show up. Schultz, Mora, and Hans. Now if you're an attentive listener, that would make the tally of people he is 7, which is a problem, as is only ever been 6 Braves, never 7. They then deduce that one of them isn't who they're saying they are, other than the ones that go outside to try and find the skate to the barrio, but all they manage to do is go around in circles. When they get back, they see from me tied down, as she is the prime suspect of being the extra brave. More than suggested, they all introduce themselves to each other in order to get the information and figure out this mess they'll introduce themselves with. For me going lost, most preemies explaining herself, it's revealed that she is a Hall of Human Hall fiend entity born from human father and a thing the mother to be. Seen a lot of these veins. Look what the fuck is wrong with the dead. For me is that included, as if she was the 7th Brave, it would make no sense for her to not kill Eilert beforehand when they were alone. But Hans then accuses it Little being the 7th, as he's an assassin. He is familiar with tools like this. Once they open, they don't close. And that was the first one in here, meaning it must be him. In the confusion about being accused of gold of charges that I'd let what he throws a flask bang on the ground and takes for me as a hostage, knocking her unconscious, and escapes the temple. As he's escaping, Hans throws a dagger, which takes him in the back. He then passes out to the blood loss while running away. While he's unconscious, we get a flashback to his policy of when He first went to train with his monster, begging him to teach him, so we can become the strongest in the world and defeat the fans. When they come, his first lesson while being beaten up was to always smile in the face of despair. Pretty good lesson, interesting way of teaching it. When he awakens, he finds himself having been patched up by For Me, who is only 99% sure he's the seventh brave. They then talk a bit about their policy, and while opening up slightly to each other, that explains how his monster at first bite go toward about a fight. And he made sure he learned science, taking them from a scrawny, almost dead child into the strongest man in the world. He also then explains that one day, when he was a child of faint, that 3 wings came to the village, quite the double gentleman, if I do say so myself, and the fans then convinced the village elders that they were to move the village into the domain of the demon god, as there was no way the 6 braves could win this time. For Me then confirmed that this was the same Fane who convinced her mother to give birth to her because of this. That explains his best friend insisted died protecting him while escaping the village. For Me then tells a story of a mother trying to kill her, which makes her furious of the kind, and you forever hates them, especially the demon gold. They then part ways, and For Me heads back off to making her way inside the temple. The other braves devise a plan to capture and kill Atlet, and so the group divide themselves up, going to search for him. While they're gone, Atlet goes the temple, but Hans stuck around, and they begin to fight. I let them take the battle into the forest, all the while trying to convince Hans that he isn't the imposter. But his words aren't enough. That eventually puts it all on the line, trying to prove to Hans that he is in the 7th. By tricking and disarming him instead of killing him when he had the chance. This proves his innocence when Hans then tells the unarmed Atlet that he is the 7th brave. Charging at him, slicing his throat open, except he's fine, and Hans explains the made him hallucinate, trying to seize dying moments, and found out that Atlet is chill. Meanwhile, not to tell you, speculates that Hans might actually be the 7th brave, and is asking gold for help. Atlet and Hans then go back to the temple to find clues, but then find Shell not outside, which he then attacks both of them by summoning fiends from a Palby in the Saint of the Swamps. Of that, Hans fight against Jamet, but no matter what they do, have fiends always regenerate, making them impossible to deal with. They then get the great idea of attacking the person somebody in and not focusing on the ads working together. They manage to incapacitate. They then capture, begin a bit of an interrogation. They asked her if she knew anything about the activation of the Bay Area, and she nods no, believing her. Atlet goes to search for more clues and uses the bomb that For Me gave him to signal to her. They then made up, and Atlet explains what he thinks it happened and how they're being used by the 7th brave in a very confusing manner. For Me then disagrees completely with this hypothesis, and back in the temple, Hans is telling more and should not the same thing, which they also disagree on elsewhere. Not to tell you can phone of gold of that no one else is died by checking on the crest. Hey, thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. It only takes a second, and it really helps me out.